I'm somebody who, for as long as I can remember, has been incredibly skeptical of the state, of our government, which is an interesting thing because I'm someone who was raised on a base for a large part of my childhood and someone whose parents were both serving in the military. But for some reason, I've always balked at the kind of power that the government holds over the people of the United States. And as I've grown older, of course, that's expanded to most governments throughout the world when it comes to their people. But specifically in America, because America is a very special place when it comes to its very foundation, I find the consolidation of power and the monopoly of violence that our government holds against the people and its willingness to use it to be increasingly dangerous, especially in this time that we're in now. The question is civil unrest the future of America? And when I mean the future of America, I mean that. Not civil unrest be in the future of America, because I think it's a necessity. You'll always see civil unrest at some point. But I think that with the situation that we're seeing right now in America, that civil unrest will become the norm in America. Of course, we remember the riots and protests of 2020, just as we see the riots and protests happening all around the country right now. But as our nation expands ideologically and we move away from one another, I think that this amount of civil unrest and the intensity in which we see it will only grow in scale. And as I said, become a fixture. And I think that that would be one out of necessity, because as long as America is a country of 50 states, we are going to see that. We are not the United States anymore. We are united only in name, but in reality, we are a nation that is at each other's throats. We cannot take each other anymore. We cannot tolerate being around each other. Any display of political identification brings with it such baggage that we cannot forgive those who represent the other side, who support the other side, who cheer on any of the abuses of power, any of the malignant behaviors that come with such unsatisfactory leadership. We are a nation truly disunited. And it's only a matter of time before the dissolution of the United States really happens. I don't think this is doom and gloom. I think this is the most realistic approach that we can take to actually looking at the situation in the United States. And of course, civil unrest is going to be a key feature of that. But what does it mean? I think we move to an era of new sectarian violence in America, as the very foundations of what this country was meant to be, even though it may never have actually been what it was meant to be, other than for a very short window of time. The fracturing of American identity and ideology has created a vacuum that is giving way to tyranny. This is what America feels like. And not just to me, to many of you out there. This is what America is now. It's a place of tyranny. It's a place of oppression. It's a place of tyrants. When I was a kid, we took a class field trip to Philadelphia, and I went to Benjamin Franklin's printing press. It was an amazing memory. And I remember buying a copy of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, and I proudly displayed them. They're big. I proudly displayed them on the wall behind my bed, and I remember reading it. I was an interesting kid like that, a bit of a weirdo. And they stood there until I went to college. And I always had a deep sense of patriotism and pride in what the idea of what America was. But in my adult life, I've only seen the failings to actually fulfill the promises, even starting with the Declaration of Independence. And lately, while reading that same Declaration of Independence, the very reasons that we saw the people of the now United States rise up against the King of England are evidently now found in the actions of politicians in our country, our leadership, if that's what you want to call them. So in lieu of reading the entire Declaration of Independence, which I don't mind doing, let's go over the key reasons that were addressed in the Declaration to show why Americans decided to separate from Great Britain. The history of the present King of Great Britain is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having in a direct object the establishment of a tyranny over these states. To prove this, let facts be submitted to a candid world. He refused his assent to laws, the most wholesome and necessary for the public good. He has forbidden the governors to pass laws of immediate and pressing importance unless suspended in their operation till the assent should be obtained. And when so suspended, he has utterly neglected to attend them. He refused to pass laws for the accommodation of large districts of people, unless those people would relinquish the right of representation in the legislature, a right inestimable to them and formidable to tyrants alone. He has called together legislative bodies at places unusual and comfortable and distant from the depository of the public records, for the sole purpose of fatiguing them into compliance with his measures. He dissolved representative houses repeatedly. He has refused for a long time after such disillusions to cause others to be elected, or by the legislative powers incapable of annihilation, have returned to the people at large for their exercise. The state remaining in the meantime exposed to all the dangers of invasion from without and convulsions within. He endeavored to prevent the population of these states, for that purpose obstructing the laws for naturalization of foreigners, refusing to pass others to encourage their migrations hither, and raising conditions of new appropriations of lands. He has obstructed the administration of justice by refusing his assent to laws for establishing judiciary powers. He has made judges dependent on his will alone for the tenure of his offices and the amount and payment of their salaries. He has erected a multitude of new offices and sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people and eat out of their substance. He has kept among us in times of peace standing armies without the consent of their legislatures. He has affected to render the military independent of and superior to the civil power. He has combined with others to subject us to a jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution and unacknowledged by our laws, given his assent to their acts of pretended legislation, for quartering large bodies of armed troops among us, for protecting them by a mock trial from punishment for any murders which they should commit on the inhabitants of these states, for cutting off our trade with all parts of the world, for imposing taxes on us without our consent, for depriving us in many cases of the benefits of trial by jury, for transporting us beyond the sea to be tried for pretended offenses, for abolishing the free system of English laws in our neighboring province, establishing therein an arbitrary government, and enlarging its boundaries so as to render it at once an example and fit instrument for introducing the same absolute rule into these colonies, for taking away our charters, abolishing our most valuable laws, and altering fundamentally the forms of our governments, for suspending our own legislatures and declaring themselves invested with power to legislate us in all cases whatsoever. He has abdicated government here by declaring us out of his protection and waging war against us. He has plundered our seas, ravaged our coast, burnt our towns, and destroyed the lives of our people. He is at this time transporting large armies of foreign mercenaries to complete the works of death, desolation, and tyranny, already begun with circumstances of cruelty and perfidy scarcely paralleled in the most barbarous ages, and totally unworthy the head of a civilized nation. He has constrained our fellow citizens, taken captive on the high seas to bear arms against their country, to become the executioners of their friends and brethren, or to fall themselves by their heads. He has excited domestic insurrections amongst us, and has endeavored to bring on the inhabitants of our frontiers, the merciless Indian savages, whose known rule of warfare is an undistinguished destruction of all ages, sexes, and conditions. In every stage of these oppressions we have petitioned for redress in the most humble terms. Our repeated petitions have been answered only by repeated injury. A prince whose character is thus marked by every act which may define a tyrant is unfit to be the ruler of a free people. When I read these words, I can only see ourselves in reflection of a time from hundreds of years ago. Although the landscape has changed significantly and the demographics of the population have changed, the actions of a tyrant are still the actions of a tyrant. And maybe they should be recognized as such. So yes, civil unrest is the future for America, because civil unrest is necessary for there to be a future of America, a future for a true United States. Interesting times we live in. If you're still here at this point, I want to invite you to like and subscribe. Maybe think about becoming a member. Any comments, agreements, disagreements. I understand the comment of Native Americans in the Declaration of Independence might make some people uncomfortable, as they've probably never read that. And I could have skipped over that part, but I chose not to, because we have to be true to the history that is the history of our country. And that's just reality. So again, thank you for stopping by, and we hope you have a good one.